Disclaimer. This video is a discussion of an online series which revolves pretty deeply around stories of child abuse and trauma. If this is a topic which is sensitive or triggering for you, I recommend clicking off the video, as this is a topic that is going to be talked about quite a lot throughout the entirety of it. Thank you. Petscop is an avant-garde horror masterpiece. It was a YouTube channel with 25 uploads of gameplay of an unfinished PS1 game called Petscop, narrated by someone who calls themselves Paul. The concept alone might not seem like anything special. The catch is that the game does not exist anywhere outside of the channel. Since the series originally began in 2017, there have been attempts to make a playable remake of the game, but the original gameplay can only be found on the Petscop YouTube channel, and the footage on the channel doesn't really do us any favors in explaining what the game actually is.
What the fuck?
The footage is mostly fragmented recordings, often accompanied with a very confusing narration. Occasionally things appear in the game that need to be censored. There are various people which Paul talks with, but we can only hear his side of the conversation.
When you come home next month, and hopefully you're feeling a little more enthusiastic about that now, we can investigate this together. Can you remember when you saw this? I have to code you.
The game clearly depicts some very disturbing events, but what exactly they are is very difficult to pin down.
That's a dead kid.
Since the series is very cryptic and open to interpretation, many people have tried to talk about their own ideas and what it might mean.
Petscop is an enigma, and I want to dedicate this video to uncovering and analysing it.
There is so much going on in Petscop, and I've had some major trouble even beginning to present my findings in an orderly fashion.
Hello Internet, welcome to Game Theory.
People like Self-Player Cynical, Game Theory, or Nightmare Masterclass, who actually has somewhere around 20 hours of content dedicated to Petscop analysis. And after those 20 hours still concludes on having no clear interpretation of the entire series.
First, I would like to reiterate that the Petscop investigation is simply my interpretation of Petscop. It is not the final word, nor is it the ultimate meaning of the work.
I mean, a fair few things have been figured out, but a lot of it still stays relatively mysterious. I watched a few of these theory videos, and all of them have certain things figured out, but I think it's fair to say that a lot of the interpretations depend on the person making the video and their personal experiences. Not just with the game, but life in general.
Also, this is a stretch, as I'm unsure if it applies to other countries outside the UK, but over here on the road, signs displayed in a triangle format mean a warning.
This video also isn't going to be me trying to definitely figure the entire series out, but more so my thoughts on what the series means to me, and how I interpret a lot of the symbolism in it. And I know this video is called a Petscop examination, but if you see me particularly harping on a certain topic, chances are it's more about me than it is about the game. As this kind of goes without saying about a lot, or at least some of the things I'm going to be talking about in this video, I haven't figured out by myself. A lot of it comes either from the various videos I've watched about Petscop or from the Petscop Comprehensive Progress document, a fan-made database documenting the entire series and pretty much all of the theories surrounding it. All of the videos I have watched as well as the document will be linked in the description below, and you can feel free to check them out. Free will, that's how it works. Also, whilst I haven't been exactly keen on theories in my other two examination videos, I think it's almost impossible to talk about Petscop without making your own notes and theories on what it means. Whilst the works of Pilot Redson and David Firth are mostly just abstract nonsense, Petscop is by design made to intrigue people into trying to find out what it's about. So that's what we're going to do. The way this is going to work is that I'm going to go through each one of the episodes and sort of give my thoughts as the series goes along. And also, as you probably already noticed, this is a part 1 only covering the first 12 episodes. This is mostly because I'm already pretty sure this is going to be the longest video on the channel, and I don't want to stretch it too much. I mean, my guess is, I'm recording the intro and my guess is going to be like 2 hours long, but at least it's not 4 hours. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the series, and let's start by talking about its author. Domenico is the creator of Petscop. It's very difficult to find much information about him, as he mostly likes to stay out of the public eye. I have only been able to find 2 interviews with him, one of which has been made long before he even started working on Petscop. The main interaction people really have with him is on his Twitter, @PressDies. According to the one Petscop interview he's done, the entirety of the game and the videos have been made by him, mostly as a passion project, which I find to be pretty incredible. Admittedly, it is not impossible to imagine it all being created by one man, but just the sheer amount of effort that must have gone into creating and planning out a game like this is pretty amazing. I also love the vision that Domenico has for his creations and for the way he wants to make people feel. It's creepy, though not in the way that threatens anyone directly. It's not that you're scared of anything in particular. It's like when you're a kid and you haven't been in the universe long enough to have this really solidified feeling of what can and can't happen in it. So that's like anything can happen. People could jump out of your TV, that kind of thing. I love trying to bring myself back to that. I think you can do it by messing with basic expectations, operating on a foreign set of rules, and making it difficult to predict what's going to happen. I'm sorry if this comes across as a little corny, but I actually find this idea of a universe where anything can happen, and the terrifying implications that has, really inspiring. Petscop actually made me write my own creepy book of sorts last year. I haven't published it anywhere or anything like that. Might do that eventually, but I just find the idea so incredibly potent. It also perfectly describes the vibe you get from watching Petscop, as watching little bits of the series often doesn't make you feel too scared. There's no creepy music, no jump scares, just the cryptic messages, and an ominous atmosphere surrounding the whole series. But the more you get involved with this world, the scarier even little sounds and movements get. I almost never jump from being terrified by something inside the game, as the game doesn't usually involve any sudden movements or audio cues. But if anybody walks in on me watching it, I usually get terrified just by the ominous atmosphere that helps my imagination get the best of me. But anyways, enough of me trying to summarize the whole series in about 2 lines. I think I'll have about the next 2 hours to properly explain what exactly this whole series means to me. So let's do that instead. The entire series starts off with a PlayStation loading screen. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but the loading screen does somewhat creepily glitch out at the end. Then we get presented with the logo of the company that created the game in 1997, Garalina. This logo does look weirdly legitimate, just like Petscop itself. Garalina is a fictional company which can only be found being mentioned on various Petscop-related sites. We are then introduced to the narrator of the entire series, Paul.
Alright, so,
He never directly states his name, but Paul is the name he gives himself in the game, and also what most people know him as. One of the things which instantly appear kind of odd, which I've sort of mentioned already, is the fact that Paul seems to be talking to a specific person, possibly a friend he wants to share the game to.
alright, so, this is just to, prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found.
When you're making a Let's Play video, which is essentially what this is, the people making the videos usually address their audience, not a specific person in that audience. It also begs the question, if these videos were meant for a specific person, why are they all publicly available on YouTube? I guess you could just say that Paul wanted to share this video with people on the internet, hoping they would help him figure the game out, so he made it public, but it relatively soon becomes apparent that that is not the case, especially when Paul starts intentionally withholding information from us. Back at the video itself, Paul creates his own game in the menu, and we are presented with a loading screen, with a huge gift box on a stick. Gifts like these are common imagery throughout the series, appearing in all sorts of places, and they also appear all over the plane Paul's character spawns in immediately after he puts the file name in, fittingly called the gift plane. Paul approaches a little sign on the road which makes a text box pop up. This is how almost all dialogue in the game is presented. The text box reads, "The gift plane is closed indefinitely and all personnel have left. If you're unaware, the gift plane provided home to over 100 young pets. Unfortunately, we have failed to remove all the pets from their homes. 48 pets remain here at the time of writing. We strongly encourage you to visit our 8 homes and find some friends to take with you. Every pet is uniquely valuable. You should have no problem finding somebody that you love. Signed, the gift plane staff." Both numbers 48 and 8 are glitched out in this text. This could be because they both seem to be false.
The game is apparently unfinished because there's nothing over here.
Paul walks over to the first level, home, of the game, even care, then proceeds to walk a bit further only to show that the road ends there and that the game is unfinished, which means there's only one home, containing only 6 pets. Mine and many other people's guesses would be that the game is unfinished and there was actually supposed to be 8 homes, each one of them containing 6 pets. He then enters even care, and we're presented with a bright pink and purple loading screen.
This actually is not the interesting part, but I'm just gonna show you, I'm gonna walk you through all of this so you can see that this is exactly what I described.
We enter even care, a vibrant pink world with symbols strolling by in the background, filled with loads of little collectibles, which Paul makes sure to pick up. The first thing comes across after entering even care is an image. It's a picture of 2 friends, Toneth and Randus. Are they not cute? Give them a chance. Again, the name Toneth is marked in red, while Randus is marked green. This could also be due to the fact that Toneth does not appear to be in even care. Paul goes over to a door in the back of the room and is presented with another text box. This door is locked. Or not, but he didn't know how to open doors. Paul not being able to open doors is actually a recurring theme in the game. I'm almost tempted to call it a recurring gag. I mean, it does have deeper meaning behind it, but I find it hilarious. Paul then goes to the right and enters a hallway with 2 signs in it, which read, when you're choosing a pet, find somebody that you like. You don't have to love them right away. And don't be discouraged if they run from you. They really do want a home. They're afraid. Show them that there is nothing to be afraid of. Whilst these signs might not seem like a big deal, they play really well into the subtle but disturbing feeling that surrounds Petscop. First of all, it is somewhat strange to refer to a pet as somebody, which is a term we usually use only for humans. And secondly, the sign, don't be discouraged if they run from you, also feels kind of off, as if we're not supposed to take their feelings seriously and just do what we think is best for them. It's kind of like treating someone as a human, but only when it suits you. Then Paul goes into a room with the first pet we actually see in the game, a giant ball with a hat inside a cage, with a trophy which triggers a text box in front of it. It's a trophy, awarded to our Amber marked in blue, for being a real champ yesterday and today. She hasn't left her cage once. This is the first of many strange pet descriptions throughout the series. Why would you award someone for not leaving something that appears to be a prison? Maybe I'm also reading into this a bit much, but Amber also seems to be able to jump high enough to get out of there, so has she been in some way manipulated to believe that simply staying in the cage is the right thing to do? Paul tries to open one of the cages and catch Amber, but is unable to as she simply jumps to the other cage. So Paul instead tries to lock himself within a cell, tricking Amber to believing it's safe, and catching her that way.
So, once you're in here, actually, you can find a little place here to walk to the other side.
While this might simply seem like a puzzle, it is also indicative of the way trickery and lies are a common theme in Petscop. We enter another room with a pet named Ronith, who appears to be a fusion of Toneth and Randus. Paul tries to catch him, but is unable to.
Hey, over here, I can't catch this one. I've tried. This is always what happens.
Paul then opens the game menu, going into a list of pets, all of which, apart from Amber, are seen as silhouettes. He chooses Amber to see her character description. She's afraid to leave home. If her home is good, this is not a problem. She's very heavy, and that makes her life a little harder, as well as yours. What's the safest place you can put her in? You should start thinking about that. Afterwards, it goes into a room with a pet whose name we don't know yet, standing on a keyboard with a treadmill standing next to it. Paul steps on the keyboard, and a clone of his appears on the keyboard in a distance of keys set by the treadmill. That might sound like a very complicated description, but it's really simple, I just don't know how to describe it. Paul simply sets the treadmill to 7, catching the pet.
I don't totally get that one. That's that.
We find 2 more pets, a cloud and a flower, Wavy and Randus. One interesting thing about this part of the game, the dirt seems to be going deep beneath the game's plane. This could simply be a lag, or it could come to play later. Honestly, I've watched the whole series and I still don't know which one of those 2 it is. Paul tries to catch Randus, but is unable to, as both Wavy and Randus move over to the other piece of dirt. So he instead pushes the bucket above the place where Randus comes out of the ground, essentially catching both of them.
Yeah. And then that happens, and you can just catch them both that way. Okay. So, yeah, that's it for the... Actually, that's everything. That's every single pet here.
Paul then goes into around this room, reading out a note he apparently got with the game. This note is also written out in the video description.
Alright, so I still can't catch this guy. The reason we're here is because in the note that came with this, which is short, the first line, in all capital letters, I'm gonna read it, it says, I walked downstairs, and when I got to the bottom, instead of proceeding, I turned the right and became a shadow monster man. Below that, a date, June 13th, 1997. For you, please go to my website on the sticker, and also go to Ronith's room, and press start, and press down, 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 right, start.
Paul puts in the code on the note, a glitchy sound effect plays, and the music stops.
Down, 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 right, start. Alright? So you can see that it accepted it and the music stopped. I'm just gonna go out this way here.
Many people have known this already, but this moment often really makes you realize just how good of a job the chewing music was doing at distracting us from the clearly disturbing overtones of everything that's been happening so far. Afterwards, Paul looks out of even care. Everything apart from the music being gone seems normal, until Paul exits. But before I show you what's behind the door, I would like to note that the screen cuts to black once he exits, and with a bit of adjustment we can see that in this black screen, there's actually a hidden image. It's nothing too clear, but it appears to be a girl's face. It doesn't have any clear meaning so far, but it does do a very good job creating this atmosphere that there's more to this game that we don't know about. Paul then exits even care, and instead of the white and pink overtones of the gift plane, is presented with a gloomy green plane, with a texture that I'm assuming is supposed to be grass.
So there's nothing out here, as far as I've seen. But actually I think there is something out here. I just haven't seen it yet. Because it sure seems like, in this note here, it sure seems like, right, I'm supposed to come out here and look at something. I haven't found anything yet, but I'm thinking if I just keep walking around here, I'm gonna find something eventually.
The recording then cuts to Paul walking around, finding a scary looking wooden door in the middle of nowhere. The door is closed and doesn't seem to be interactable.
Last time I came out here, I was walking around in this space here for over an hour. And this time I find this in less than 15 minutes. So this is just luck that I happen to find this. And I think if I were to restart my console right now, I would not be able to find this again.
This comment leads me to assume that throughout the entire series, the console is constantly turned on. This might seem like a small detail, but it does take on new meaning the longer the series goes on.
So I thought I would just slip this in at the end. If you think you saw something that might provide a clue, please let me know. Alright, that's it.
And so, the entire episode concludes, ironically, on Paul not being able to open a door. Episode 2 starts off with Paul standing next to that same door, but this time the door, seemingly at random, opens.
Hey, so, the door opened on its own. I was just in the other room for a couple of minutes, and I came back and the door was open, and I checked the recording, because I was recording, and the door just opens on its own. I didn't do anything.
Paul enters the door where he walks down a gloomy staircase into an empty beige room with a few images hung on the walls and a textureless block moving around the corner. He walks into a dorm, owned by the collectibles which are also placed in this part of the game, in spite of the fact that this part of the game is most likely not meant to be seen by most people playing it. He enters a relatively small white room where a phone ringing catches him off guard.
Phone.
The phone gives him a text box which reads, "Kara left the room." Notice the name Kara being marked in yellow. There is also a sign on the wall with 3 faces of a girl and increasing amounts of distress. A, B, and NOM. The NLM here is commonly believed to be an acronym for Nobody Loves Me. Paul enters a narrow hallway with a set of roads surrounded by darkness. He tries to go to the front, but the camera doesn't pan and he simply walks out of the screen. This further reinforces the idea that the game is unfinished, with various roads and doors throughout the game simply ending with nothing. Going the opposite direction, Paul finds 3 images hung on the walls along the road. First, a house. The second image is of another building, which plays an ominous tone when Paul clicks on it. The third picture is a windmill. It's very dark. I've actually had to enhance the picture a bit for it to be clearly visible, but it's pretty indisputable. It's a windmill. Afterwards, Paul comes across a road where a car drives by every few seconds, but stops every time he walks into it. Paul tries to walk further down the road, but again, simply goes off the screen. He manages to find a door in the wall, entering another room.
Sorry for not talking very much. I'm a little bewildered, if you want to know the truth. This is a little more than I was expecting to see.
The scope reminds us that all of this is a part of the game that was only accessible to cheat code. Now, I'm not a big gamer, but I would assume when you put a cheat code into a game, it either lets you unlock some extra skills, or it lets you into a part of the game you start testing. Maybe a little deluxe level. Petscop does none of that. In fact, this entire place seems completely unrelated to the bright and cheerful Even Care. It almost seems like a different game. Only seems though, there are some connections later on. Paul then walks up to a stone with a face, with a gift placed above it.
That's a dead kid.
This is one of our first signs of the truly dark stories behind Petscop. Michael Hammond has only lived for 7 years. While still don't have much context on what exactly this means yet, it's still a child's gravestone we're looking at. This sign alone might not seem like that much, but it adds to the themes of child abuse the game is essentially built upon. For me, it also shows a very blurry line in between how children and pets are treated, certainly within the game, but also in real life. In this case, treating a child as a gift, which is what people sometimes treat pets as, whilst pets can be addressed as somebody's and seemingly treated as children. I know it might just seem like a vague theory right now, but I feel like the line gets more and more blurry the longer the game goes on. Paul enters the house next to Mike's tombstone, where he finds a flower growing from the floor, which he can pull petals from. A little detail which I most likely wouldn't have noticed if I haven't seen other people pointing to it. With each petal pulled, the room slightly shifts color, the lighting either turning red or white. Stopping before the very few last petals are pulled, Paul decides to go into the other room of the building, where he finds a girl, here in her NLM state, crying on top of a huge pile of dirt. Paul tries to catch her, but can't. Going back to the flower, he pulls a few last petals out and comes back. The dirt pile is now gone, and Kara is broken. Her figure has turned red and is lagging out. Paul tries to catch her, but his character clips right through her. All of these events have been, by quite a few people, linked to an old Dr. Seuss book called Daisy Had Maisie, where a girl has a flower growing out of her head and is made fun of because of it. There is a point in the story where she also says "Nobody loves me," which is why NLM is believed to be an acronym.
I can never go home. Nobody loves me.
She also has petals falling off from the flower on her head, to symbolize the game where you pull petals from flower. They love me or they love me not. In that story, the last petal is obviously they love me. Here, it is they love me not.
They love me not?
Even indicated by the slight shift to red the room makes after Paul pulls the last petal. Paul walks out of the room with care, finding a hallway behind the building, and going through it all the way to a stone hallway with childishly drawn images of a strange object placed all over the walls.
Can I go in here? I can.
Also, I feel like this is the right place to know that if you're getting a little bit confused by my descriptions of all the places, and you can't really get a good image of what it all looks like, or can't really orientate in it, I recommend you check out the maps I have linked in the description. There are maps of Even Care as well as this place, where you can see how the various rooms are linked, where Paul is going through, and stuff like that. So check that out in case you're a little bit confused. Once he gets to the end of the hallway, he can see that same object, this time standing right there in front of him.
Oh.
He interacts with the object, and a window pops up, This time method lets him ask things.
What?
He simply asks it, "What?" to which the object responds with, "I don't know." We can hear Paul chuckling into the microphone a little bit, seemingly entertained by the fact that such a non-starter question produced such a non-starter answer. He goes behind the object where he's able to watch the windmill, the same one we've seen hung on a wall before. Turning around, he sees the object with the floating text above it, which reads, "Keep watching the windmill." Clearly bewildered, Paul goes back to the windmill. This time around we can hear 2 scary chords, but nothing else seems to be changing.
Oh.
The footage then turns to black for a bit, cutting to the same scenery just a bit later.
Alright, so it's been like 2 minutes, and when those sounds were playing, there was nothing happening as far as I could tell, and nothing has happened since. So, I'm just gonna keep going. There's already been stuff that I could dig a little deeper into.
I also forgot to mention this before, but every time there is a cut on the footage, a black screen appears for a few seconds to clearly indicate that it was a cut. Paul walks out of the room with a strange object and goes to the other side of the hallway he's been in before. Whilst walking, he decides to talk for a little longer by this person he's wanted to show the game to at the very start.
But also, when you come home next month, and hopefully you're feeling a little more enthusiastic about that now, we can investigate this together.
Still, we don't really know who he's talking to. The first thing Paul finds the hallway is a tunnel. Unfortunately, it seems to be blocked by a wall. A little bit further, Paul finds another tunnel, except this time it has nothing blocking it. What follows is probably one of the scariest and most haunting scenes so far. Paul enters a room with a mirror, with a reflection of his on the other side. The reflection has the same body, but the face of it appears to be a poorly sketched smile. For me, this represents people pretending to be happy, and their mask slowly cracking. The reflection on the other side looks like it was meant to have a happy smile, but the smile is clearly fake, or at least distorted. This face also kind of looks like the hidden face in the loading screen from episode 1. Another interesting thing about this room is that we're on the opposite side of a reflection. The center of the ground is a mirror reflection, which backwards reads Quitter's room. Paul walks around the room for a bit, walking behind a shelf, when a set of tones which also played when the door of the grass plane first opened, plays. Paul quickly walks up to the reflection, which is now weirdly out of sync. It's still trying to mimic his moves, but it gets out of the sync pretty easily, and it takes a little while to get back in. I think this could also symbolize the reflection essentially getting forced to be perfect, if that makes sense. It looks like a perfect reflection, but it slips up, and it's pretty clear it's not. There is also a sign stuck to the wall in the back of the room, flipped, just like everything else in the room, which reads, "Do you remember being born?" Paul walks out of the room, going a little further in the hallway, finding a staircase which leads back up to the grass plane. The episode simply concludes there. Episode number 3 begins with Paul entering a door in the wall on his right, which he forgot about last time.
Alright, so now we're gonna look at what's over here, which I forgot about this, so I'll look at this now.
He finds a hallway with a sign on the wall that reads, "Good Grief and Alice." This is also believed to be a reference to the Daisy and Maisie story.
Children, be quiet! Good grief and alas! To think this is happening right here in my class!
At the end of the hallway, you find a building stretching far above, which kind of looks like the underground version of a building we've seen before, as a picture in the hallway. The building also has a hole in it, with some object Paul's character is able to spin around.
Do I,
Going inside the building, there is a canvas, a reception with a spinning object inside it, and a door in the wall Paul is unable to go into. Interacting with the canvas, Paul is able to put various faces into it, various eyebrows, eyes, and noses. He puts a face in, and the room starts shaking.
this is just flat out a full game that I'm playing now.
The room shakes for a while until Paul decides to walk out of it. Unfortunately, that seems to reset the entire room, cleaning the canvas and stopping whatever the room shaking was doing.
I don't think I was supposed to do that. Yeah. Yeah, I reset it.
Clearing the canvas and stopping whatever the room shaking was doing. Paul puts a face on the canvas again. The footage then jump cuts to show that the shaking has been going on for a little while.
So this is cleared out, I guess. So what's in here?
After the cut, Paul is finally able to enter the door in the back of the room. The room is a simple box with a bed, a table, and a face on the wall, the same one he put onto the canvas. He zooms in on the table to see there is a lamp, and under it, a red car and a billiard ball. He tries to go into the darkness in the back of the room, disappearing into the darkness before coming back, again showing little bits of the game being unfinished. Paul tries out another face, this time entering a similar room, just with differently colored walls with different patterns, and with different objects on the table. This time it's a Rubik's Cube and a pest dispenser.
There are many combinations of these faces. So, if I were to guess, these rooms are... because there's not much variation between these rooms, they're probably generated in some way.
This time, Paul also acknowledges that there is a static model of a child stuck on the bed, which he can't interact with.
I guess that's a kid sitting on the bed.
Worth noting, I feel like there's a little more to this room design than just it being a children's room. But the way children like Mike seem to be seen as gifts, it is quite interesting how the rooms are basically boxes, even with the walls looking like decorative wrapping paper. Paul then walks out of the room and talks for a bit about his experiences with the room so far.
So I just did it again. I put in another one of these, and I just let it go, and the room rumbles for a while, but then it just stops, kind of abruptly.
From my understanding, this is to solidify the idea that this is a PS1 game, since for an old console it might be way more difficult to generate a room, which is why it takes so long. Paul tries out 2 more rooms, both of them seemingly randomly generated. One of them had the same red card and a white console on the table, and the other one having another Rubik's Cube and a tub of Play-Doh. Afterwards, the footage cuts again, this time to Mike's grave.
So, anything, look familiar here?
And again, to Paul putting Mike's face into the canvas. A sign pops up. Mike is not inside right now. He is dead. You may visit his room. Mike's room doesn't look too out of the ordinary. There isn't a child on the bed here, obviously, but apart from that, the room looks relatively regular. One quite interesting thing about the room is that the red tool can be seen on the table, next to a pair of tweezers, possibly implying that Mike is in some way related to the tool. Paul then attempts to put Kira's face into the canvas. Kira's missing. You may visit her room. Again, there isn't a child on the bed. On the table, there is a nail tool and some crayons. Paul then goes into the back of the room, where this time he finds a text box. Kira isn't growing eyebrows. You say, that's a puzzle. You're secretly very excited to hear this news. You're in the bathtub thinking about her. I have a guess at which child you'll pick next. When you find her room, the passage to my right will lead to her. She'll appear from the darkness, limping, and I'll shoot her in the head. TR says young people can be psychologically damaged beyond rebirthing. A young person walks into your school building. They walk in with you. You're holding their hands. They come out crying into their hands because nobody will love them. Not ever again. Nobody loves me. They wander the Newmaker plane. Paul is clearly disturbed by this message, even if he does not speak a lot. When he eventually does, he sounds rather terrified.
I'm not sure what to say about that, but I'm wondering now. Because the note, remember the note that came with this game, it said, for you, and this note is referring to the player, it's saying you. And I was already thinking this, but it seems like it's possible. This game was made for, well, this part of the game was made for somebody to see. Like, or at least at some point, it was, I don't know. It just seems like it was intended for somebody. Not me, certainly.
But apart from the mortifying tone of the entire message, we might have to take a look at what could it mean. The message itself is rather cryptic, and I think most of it is only going to start making sense later on in the series. But the one thing I would like to focus on is the color coding of the message. Different colors symbolizing different people speaking. We obviously don't yet know who the various colors represent yet, but it's safe to say there are at least 4 people speaking in this message. Care, marked in yellow, someone called Tiara, marked in purple, someone marked in blue, and the person who is being spoken to directly here, marked in green. Paul then walks out of the building, going to a hole in the wall on his right, but immediately finds that the game is also unfinished there. The episode simply concludes on him walking through the darkness. I think this is as good of a time as ever to talk about a story which is pretty heavily referenced in the earlier episodes of Petscop, the story of Candace Elizabeth Newmaker, born Candace Tiara Elmore. Before I talk about it, I would like to warn everyone that in case the events and topics of the series have already been making you somewhat uncomfortable, I recommend either skipping this part of the video, there are timestamps in the video description, or clicking off the video entirely because the story of Candace Newmaker is one of the darkest stories of child abuse and murder I have ever seen. I would also like to preface this story by saying that I thought for quite a while about how should I include it, because on one hand I would like to evade going into all of the disgusting details of it all, on the other hand I don't really want to be doing the story a disservice by ignoring certain parts of it. In the end, I have decided that I'm only going to go over the story very briefly, mentioning most of the bits that are relevant to Petscop. However, if this is something that interests you and you're okay with learning more about, I would highly recommend you check out some of the links about it that I left in the description, as well as do your own research on the topic, because I don't think this is a story that should be ignored or forgotten. So, with all of that said, this is the story of Candace Newmaker. Candace Tiara Elmore was born in 1989 to Angela and Todd Elmore, whom she was later taken away from by Child Protective Services because of neglect. 2 years later, she was adopted by a single nurse, Jean Newmaker, whom was supposed to give her a better life. This also led to her name being changed to Candace Elizabeth Newmaker. Unfortunately, according to Jean, this transition to a better life did not go nearly as smoothly as expected, as Candace has had violent outbursts in the house, going as far as to play with matches, set fire in her own home, and killing goldfish. What is true of these statements, I guess we'll never know, since many other people from Candace's life, notably her teachers, have reported her being a sweet and well-behaved child. What we do know with certainty is that Jean Newmaker has tried various ways of therapy to get Candace to behave, from therapy sessions to putting her on mood-altering drugs, and has, in I suppose a mix of desperation and ignorance, decided to try out something called rebirthing therapy from 2 unlicensed therapists, Connell Watkins and Julie Ponder. Therapy worked as follows. The child which was supposed to be reborn was wrapped up in a blanket and sat on by 4 adults in an attempt to represent the womb. The idea of the therapy was to cure something called the reactive attachment disorder, which represents the struggle of a child being unable to connect with their adoptive parents, by symbolizing the parent actually giving birth to their adoptive child. The rebirthing session started with Candace being surrounded by the blankets and told to push herself out. Candace, however, was unable to. She was unable to breathe, which she tried to tell Watkins and Ponder, who told her that she had to fight for the oxygen. She literally told the therapist she was going to die, to which their response was, "Go ahead then, die." Therapists also called her a twerp or a quitter quite a few times, bullying her for not being able to get out. The last question they asked her was if she wanted to be reborn. No was the last word before she fainted and they freed her. She was transported to the hospital where she spent the night on life support before being declared brain dead from asphyxiation. Both therapists have been charged with child abuse resulting in death and have been sentenced to prison for a sentence of 16 years. Jean Newmaker was given a 4-year suspension sentence, after which the charges have been expunged from her record. The therapeutic foster parents, Brina St. Clair and Jack McDaniel, were both sentenced for 10 years of probation and 1,000 hours of community service. That is the story of Candace Elizabeth Newmaker. I don't think I need to say this, but I find it disgusting that something like this is possible and has been done to a number of children. I suppose a very slight silver lining to the story is that the therapy has after it's been banned in the United States by a law known as Candace's Law. I would also be lying if I said that this story was something I really wanted to talk about, because it does make me kind of uncomfortable, and the rest of the video does feel very, honestly, lighthearted compared to this. But the story is pretty heavily linked with Petscop, which is why I could not simply leave it out of the video. Domenico himself has acknowledged and apologized for including the story in the series, or using it as a reference point. He has actually refrained from using the name Newmaker in later stages of the game. Whilst I don't think the inclusion of the story in the series was necessarily a good idea, I also don't think it's something unforgivable, and considering the themes of the series, it does in a way make sense. I don't think it fits into the story as well as it could, but it is not something horrible to do either, in my opinion. So, let's go over the ways the story is related to Petscop. First of all, obviously through the name Newmaker, also through the name Tiara, both of the note in the Wall of Care's room. The room with the mirror reflection is also called the Quitter's Room. Candace Newmaker was called a quitter quite a few times throughout the procedure. Also, and this stretches a bit further into the future of the series than I would like it to, but I want to get it out of the way while we're talking about the story. The character with a strange smile is later found out to be called Tiara. I think she represents a successful reborn person, as Tiara is the name Candace had before getting adopted, a name associated with her birth parents. Whilst all of this is obviously very cryptic, and Candace Newmaker's only vague reference to her Petscop has even been confirmed to not be an actual character in the story, I think many things like this are at least worth considering when thinking about its interpretation. With that said, let's get back to the story of the series itself. Episode 4 of Petscop is a relatively short one, only about 2 minutes in length. It starts with Paul standing in front of the corridor leading to the Quitter's Room before going up to the grassy plain. Once again, Paul is talking to someone directly.
So if you remember what I was trying to explain yesterday, and failed to explain, I'm just gonna demonstrate that to you now.
He goes left to the door, finding something looking like a periscope sticking out of the ground.
And the way I understand this is... So, we're upstairs right now. You just saw me walk up some stairs. So, if you were to imagine what would be exactly below...
It seems like we're right above the place where the strange-shaped red object under the plane would be, so what the periscope shows should be the windmill. But the windmill doesn't seem to be there. It's just a floating plate in the shape of the windmill.
This is roughly where the windmill would be. Why there isn't actually a windmill here, I don't know.
The episode simply concludes there. Episode 5 is the first episode since episode 1 which has an actual description. And a fairly interesting one at that. Hello folks, I guess this is for all of you, now. The following are the questions where the response was, I don't know. This is a list of some questions posed as the red object. Or has he? The description addresses over the people asking these questions were as we. Who is Marvin? We asked this one after the video ended. Who is Marvin? Same as above. Marvin? Same as above. This could just be Paul acknowledging his friend he's been going through the game with, but it could also be foreshadowing that there are more people involved in the story that we don't know yet. Also, the first part of the description I think is addressing the fact that the first 4 parts of this series have been unlisted up until now. On to the actual contents of the episode, it starts with Paul asking the red object a bunch of questions.
Alright, so I spent a while with this, just asking as many questions as I could think of.
He starts it off by saying that capitalization does not matter, and then proceeds to still capitalize everything properly.
Who is Tiara? And capitalization does not make a difference.
I'm not going to go through all of the questions which produce no answer. You can go through them by yourself if you want. I'm only going to focus on the ones that actually gave answers. Those are, who is Tiara? Petscop kid, very smart. This could be the first of many references I think there are to the idea that Tiara is the successfully reborn child, being seen as smart and a good child. Who am I? Newmaker. This could mean a bunch of things, most notably that Paul could also be seen as an unsuccessfully rebirthed person, but it's probably just reference to the Candace Newmaker story. Where am I? Under the Newmaker plane. I don't have much to say about this one. I'm just happy I don't have to use the expression a grassy plain in 1,000 times.
And then I asked, who are you? I don't know why that just happened.
Suddenly, the object turns pink. Paul is clearly confused by it, still trying to ask who are you, but not getting an answer.
I think it broke. Yeah, I don't think that even just registered at all.
After a little while, pink text flows down from the above, which reads, "Turn off PlayStation," in all caps.
So that's not what it said before when I put in that question.
Paul is clearly distressed by the situation, but in spite of that, he decides to ask the object, why?
Yeah, I don't...
The object once again takes a little while to answer. What I think causes longer reply times is that there's an actual person speaking back to us now, possibly Mike since he's been connected with the tool through it being in his room, and he's a child trying to write out a message. If true, this could also symbolize how people often bottle up emotions and trauma, hiding their true disturbed self inside, and only letting it get out when they can't handle it anymore.
What the fuck?
The second answer is, Marvin picks up tool, hurts me when PlayStation on.
This fucking game. This game.
Paul seems to be getting a bit annoyed at the object, while also simultaneously trying to laugh it off. The object simply turns back to red again.
What do I have to ask now? And it switched back again.
Paul decides to once again ask it, "Who are you?" A text floats down this time, which reads, "Tool," with a symbol of the object next to it. This might also be a bit of a stretch, but tool is often used as an insult, and this could mean a person, child, who has gone through severe trauma, referring to themselves as a name they've often been called. As I've said, this could very well be a stretch, but I thought it was interesting. It's essentially self-deprecation, just on a completely different level.
So I guess I'm gonna wait for that to happen again. But I guess I'm gonna end the video now, though.
In spite of Paul saying that, the video jump cuts to more footage, this time without Paul's commentary, and I have to say I've never been this tense watching a video with no sound and no horror visuals on screen. Paul simply asking the tool, "Remember being born," is one of the most ominous moments in the entire series. The tool simply responds with, "I'm not Tiara." This ties pretty well into my idea that Tiara is someone who is seen as good and successfully reborn. But other than that, I don't actually have much to say about it. The episode ends there. Episode 6 of Petscop starts out with footage of the windmill with no sound. Then, two massive thuds play. A screen appears which reads 2 hours and 39 minutes later, after which a black shadow walks into the windmill, possibly the shadow monster man of the letter that came with the game was talking about. Once he comes in, the windmill starts spinning in the other direction, and a vibrant bass starts playing in the background. The shadow gets out of the windmill and walks right into the camera, presumably turning the periscope around as our view pans to the left. The shadow comes back in, and a pink loading screen with a circle comes out of nowhere. This might once again be a slight stretch, but I've seen a theory video talking about how this could be the shadow loading up in your game mode, as afterwards starts placing letters on the ground which look as if they were taken from the other textures in the game. It first builds a sign which reads, "Where is my house?" It then proceeds to build a house similar to the one we've seen on the wall in a hallway. There also appear to be gardening tools appearing and spinning around before disappearing randomly just as fast as they've appeared. A few other objects keep floating around, including a gift which afterwards turns into Toneth, whilst the shadow builds a sign which now reads, "Where is the school?" Once again, the shadow builds a building we have seen in the hallway. Lastly, it spells out a sign which reads, "Will follow." 1 hour and 24 minutes later, a reverb sound plays, and the windmill disappears. The footage then finally jump cuts to Paul's commentary, who seems rather agitated that he just had to go through 4 hours of gameplay, trying to figure out where exactly did the windmill change directions.
That's kind of fun, actually. Going through a 4-hour video and noticing that on one half of the video, the windmill's going one direction, and in the other half, it's going in the other direction. And pinpointing where the change occurred. And, the fuck is this?
He goes up to the Newmaker plane where the vibrant bass from earlier is still playing, the periscope sticking out from the ground now red, and a bit lower than usual.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna mention this actually in another video. I've come up here before and seen it. I've seen the camera at this height before. I don't know what causes it to happen, but sometimes I just come up here and it's at this height. It makes sense in this case, I think, because the character was, like, right up at the camera here. And it seemed to be, like, at this level.
This piece of commentary is kind of interesting, and a bit of foreshadowing on what is obviously going to be revealed later on. The character walked right up to the periscope, tampering with it. We've seen that, but since Paul has seen the periscope at the side before without seeing the shadow move with it, implies the shadow has tampered with it while Paul wasn't interacting with it at all, implying the shadow has some kind of a will of its own. But that couldn't be true, right? I mean, it's just a game. Paul looks over behind the camera, finding the I will follow sign, as well as Tonith still standing there. Paul is able to catch Tonith, and is welcomed with the same cheery jingle that played whenever any other pets have been caught.
Well, this is still here. Oh my god.
Weirdly enough, it actually feels really disturbing to hear a sound that's previously only been used in the bright and cheerful plane of even care in this vastly different environment. Also worth noting, at the 5:33 mark in the video, a set of tones starts playing in the right speaker. Paul doesn't seem to notice it, and I have no idea what it might mean, but I thought it was something worth pointing out.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Paul then checks the bright pink game menu, which feels just as out of place as the caught sign. The sign of the game menu now reads, "Have you found anything weird lately? There's much to find in this place." Tonith's description reads, "Enter description here." An empty line appears. Then the actual description shows. A bird. I think I forgot what birds look like. Funny stupid blob monster, says Mike. That's what it is. Painter. Painting puzzle. Catch Randus first? Has a broken leg for some reason. I already hung him on a wall. Too late to take it back. It makes me think about the dog actually, because when the car hit him I thought, at least it will be over soon. He survived it, and I was the only one who still wanted to put him down. The dog isn't innocent. The text here disappears beneath the screen.
Uh-oh.
When that dog wags its tail and it appears happy, it's not real. I guess that's Tonith then. Tonith. The end. It's yucky outside.
I was the only one who still wanted to put him down.
Paul is clearly distressed by reading this description. I personally don't have much to say about it, but please keep it in mind as it gains a lot of relevance later on. But right now all I know is that Tonith was hit by a car and that his leg is broken. Going over the descriptions, Paul goes into another character list with 4 rectangles, shadows which look like care A, B, and NLM, as well as an empty rectangle.
Okay, so I actually... This is new to me. I haven't seen this. Yeah, so I tried going down here before, but I think actually that was before I even put in the code. So I just discovered this, just now.
There's also an option in the menu called Book of Baby Names. I guess that's always been there, but Paul now decides to try and interact with it. It doesn't do anything.
Oh, whoops. I meant to talk about this, because this doesn't do anything, right? This menu option, nothing happens. I'm guessing at some point you could name your pets. Right, and this was like suggestions or something.
Paul walks around the windmill-shaped plate for a bit, but it seems the same as usual. He also goes to Tool, asking him 2 questions. Where's my house? You'll never go home. Where's the school? You can't go back in time. The footage jump cuts to him walking around Mike's grave, where he has a bit of a talk about how the game seems like it has some sort of a hidden entity in it.
This game is trying very hard to make it seem like there's an entity in it. Like, a ghost. Or an AI trying to communicate with me. But you know, the way you know that there's a ghost in the game trying to communicate with you is if it comes out, if it stops being distant, and it comes out and you can have a real-time back and forth with it, and it stops being so one way. Like I leave my PlayStation and it comes out and does this whole pre-recorded thing.
Keep this clip in mind, please. It's going to get important quite soon.
And, well, the closest thing that's happened to that is last video, it actually answers my questions. But, it only responded to 2 of my questions, and the first question I asked, I didn't even answer that question. So, no obvious interactivity happening. And it answered the second question, but that could have been a coincidence. So, not entirely convincing yet. But, I'm looking forward to what I might see next. It's very interesting, this game, because you can walk around and something will just happen, because I created a new file, and I tried to be scientific about it. I went and did all the same things that I did this time, and the same things did not happen. None of the things happened. None of the oddities occurred. Like the thing in the mirror room, for example. So there's a bit of randomness in it, and it's interesting how it doesn't seem to really care if you see everything, I guess. Yeah, so it's interesting.
The episode ends on 10 seconds of pure blackness, and whilst nothing happens in it, watching it I have just sat there waiting for some kind of jump scare. It obviously didn't happen, but... In episode number 7, Ball is simply walking around the Equator's room as if to try and get TR to glitch out again, but it doesn't seem to be happening. Paul is just shuffling his papers and suddenly a set of synth notes starts playing.
Something's happening.
He quickly walks up to the glass wall, only to find out TR isn't there anymore, but appears once again with the tone stop.
Oh, hi there.
Everything seems to be back to normal, except when Paul checks the "Do you remember being born" sign. There is a pink note in all caps under the sign that reads, "Come here," in bright pink letters, similar to the color of a glitched out tool. I love you, Newmaker. Please show Marvin where his house is. It was the tool.
So we might know who Marvin is now.
I know this is probably pretty obvious, but Paul is referring to the shadowy figure we have seen in the Periscope, asking about the school and the house.
Oh, I need to be quick about this, actually. Because it could turn red.
Paul tries to ask the tool, "Who are you?" but it seems to ignore it. Go there, and he'll follow you. His daughter is there.
It's interesting, but it is not an answer to my question. Not at all.
Paul also tries to ask, "Do you remember being born?" but it is nothing as well.
So now I'm going to ask the other question, do you remember being born? Oh yeah, it's just, remember being born. Because the whole thing does not fit.
Also wants 1,000 pieces for a machine beyond school basement stairway. The tool then snaps back into red.
Well.
The footage cuts to Paul standing in front of the brick building, trying to put pets into the spinning hole outside of it, but is stopped by a sign which reads, "Child library only accepts people."
Well, there you go. Child library accepts people.
Paul tries with a few pets before leaving it. The game menu now reads, take them home. He tries out dropping the pets away from the child library, but he only manages to go into the character description of a pet we actually haven't seen yet.
Yeah, it's just normal.
Pen, the pet we found all the way back in episode 1, standing on the piano. The description reads, Pen is an aspiring mathematician. She's entirely deaf. She doesn't even know what sound is, let alone music. I don't know what she's doing here. I'm not sure if this description has any deeper meaning throughout the series, but I do think it is quite interesting how Paul wanted to show this game to the world, yet there are pets we haven't seen the descriptions of until now. It's also weird how much Pen seems to blur the borders between humans and pets. Can pets be mathematicians now? Pen also looks weirdly human, unlike none of the other pets. The footage jump cuts to Paul putting a face into the canvas inside the child library. The room doesn't look like anything out of the ordinary. Paul then proceeds to explain this is Mike's room without eyebrows.
So this, if you're wondering what I'm doing here, this is Mike's face, but without the eyebrows. And why am I doing that? Well, because eyebrows seem to be important.
He then proceeds to put in Kira's face with Mike's eyebrows. This room is a little more interesting.
This one is Care with eyebrows.
The lamp on the table is pink and has a few cubes with letters on it, as well as something Paul has had to censor. Paul doesn't move for a while, clearly disturbed by what he found on the table.
I put Mike's eyebrows on her. I could have put other eyebrows on her, but I didn't. I don't know if this... I can't tell. I can't tell if it recognized it or not. Because everything looks like any other room. I don't know, maybe that's just something that it puts in any room.
Paul is clearly puzzled by what he saw on the table. I've had a few ideas for what the object on the table might be, but the idea I probably agree with the most is something that a few people have talked about in the comments. That is that it is some sort of a private detail, possibly a phone number, which is why he's had to censor it. Other ideas I've had could be something sexual, possibly involving the whole idea of rebirthing, which is why he would obviously have to censor it. But those are mostly just guesses, and we can't really, with any kind of certainty, know what these objects actually are. Yet. The whole episode ends with a note, which reads, we've had to cover something with a black box. Right now, we can't say why. Some other things we're expecting to censor in the future. A big present with a sticker on it. Something on a wall in a black house. Written on a chalkboard. So, you guys remember how Toneth had that sign on him that read, I already hung him on a wall? Not sure in what exact way the sign is referring to that, but it does seem to be a pretty clear reference. Right now we don't have much to say about either of the other two things. They do gain relevance later, and this is essentially a list of censored objects we're trying to tick off. But for now you can just keep them at the back of your head. One last thing, once again the mysterious we is used in the text. Who is we? Episode 8 is another relatively short one. This one starts with Paul walking around the road, trying to get crashed by a car. It doesn't seem to be working, as the cars always just stop coming. Suddenly, Marvin comes out of the tunnel, following Paul around before running off.
What? What?
Paul follows him as he runs around in front of the picture of the school. He then does the same for the picture of the house. He afterwards goes a bit further, trying to go through a wall, as if there was something there he could go to. But it's clearly not there. Paul even chuckles about Marvin's confusion, before he's left confused himself as Marvin walks off into the darkness, simply disappearing away.
I think you're confused, Marvin. Don't think you know... I don't think you get what you're doing. What?
Paul tries going onto the Newmaker plane, but he can't find him there either.
He went up. Will I find him if I go up?
He is then found trying to walk through the wall in the same place as Marvin.
Yeah, well the thing is, it's not here now. There's not even a passageway or anything.
Once again, Paul is talking to someone directly, but it's quite confusing, as this person seemed to have more of an understanding of what the game is and how it worked before than the person he was talking to up until now.
Can you remember when you saw this? Well, it could have changed between then and 2004.
This also implies the game has changed over time, like a growing organism. Yes, that was intentional. The entire video ends on Paul glitching out a bit as he says,
Well, okay. Thanks.
might not seem like a lot, but in the context of Petscop, and in the context of me watching it for sure, stuff like that is kind of Episode 9 starts off with the Petscop logo fading to white and loading up a demo sequence. These sequences are going to appear quite a lot throughout the series. They usually mark the sign on top that reads Demo. They usually don't have any commentary from Paul himself. They are the pre-recorded things he was talking about earlier on in the series in episode 6.
I leave my PlayStation and it comes out and does this whole pre-recorded thing.
Onto the actual recording, it shows someone walking through Even Care, seemingly normal, only with the door leading out closed. They go into the room with a treadmill. The pet, pen, or her piano is not there anymore. It's just the treadmill that they proceed to turn to 0, which breaks the game. This recording on its own might not have much meaning, but there are several videos out there syncing this video with a clip of Paul taking petals off Kier's flower, and they sync up perfectly. Syncing is actually very prominent throughout Petscop. I'm only going to be talking about a few of the syncs since they honestly confuse the shit out of me, but if you want to check them out, feel free to. It's kind of incredible how many seemingly unrelated things in the game just sync up perfectly. Focusing on this moment, however, it clearly shows that the treadmill and the flower are somehow related, that the demo recordings are not just pre-recorded footage of the game, but that they do actually incorporate things Paul does in-game inside of themselves. How else could the game know at what speed was Paul going to pull the pedals off? The footage proceeds to cut the Paul walking around Mike's grave in Kier's room, going in and out of her room, turning right in the tunnel leading to her, and he turns right and becomes the Shadow Monster Man. He turns into a dark silhouette of his original avatar.
It only works when I go this way.
In this shadow form, Paul goes to the Newmaker plane, where the windmill's base would usually be, but he can actually see the windmill this time.
Are you kidding me?
Paul is kind of surprised by being able to see it. He goes to the back and walks into the windmill, where he finds a white tool, a face on a canvas, and a set of moving objects. He interacts with the tool and picks up the objects in the windmill. 50 collectibles. Walking out, the windmill is now spinning into the other direction. We can assume that this was the same thing the shadowy figure Marvin has done before when he made the windmill spin the other direction. Paul then tries going back to the windmill without the shadow cloak, but it's not there again. The footage once again cuts, this time to Paul putting the face he saw in the windmill on the child library canvas. In the room, Paul finds a clone of his. He walks after it, but it disappears before he can get to it. Apart from that, the room has a red tool and a windmill on it. There's also a sign on the wall. You must have guessed, but I was looking through your things. I found that picture of you from 1977, standing in front of an old windmill with your friend. You went there, and it was a bad idea. Your friend and the windmill both disappeared into thin air. Her sister was holding the camera. She took another picture minutes later. Just you, no windmill, and no friend. You married her sister, and years later, your friend was reborn as your daughter. Your wife won't admit this is true, but I know it because I found the evidence. Your friend never returned with you, and the windmill was gone. I went to see it myself. Where is it? What did you do? Signed Rainer, Newmaker. So, that's a lot of stuff to go through. The note on the wall is clearly not for Paul. If I had to guess who it was for, it would be Marvin. Marvin seems to be the father of Kier, a very abusive one at that. I wouldn't say this with certainty, at least not yet, but we know Marvin hurts whoever is speaking through the tool. That's certainly a red flag at least. I have no idea what the windmill disappearing could mean, but I'm pretty sure Mervyn trying to rebirth his friend as his daughter also has some pretty disturbing implications to it. Paul then proceeds to walk in the back of the room, but this time, instead of simply clipping out of it, he enters a long, dark hallway with a cake, and 2 gifts beside it at the end. One of the gifts also seems to have some sort of a sign on it. He first walks up to the present on the right, a key comes out of it and starts floating above his head. He then opens the second gift, and we can see a red pyramid coming out of it, but almost immediately a black censorship box is put over it.
What the fuck?
This is most likely the big present with a sticker on it we warned about before in the sign about censoring the footage. Whatever is behind the black box, Paul is clearly very disturbed by it. I would assume once again it was something unsettling you just can't really show on YouTube. This is probably just my personal interpretation, but it's quite interesting how the series is very careful in what it wants to show us. It clearly doesn't want to use gore, or jump scares, or anything like that to get us scared. And even when things like that are seemingly appearing in the game, they are usually censored out. It either lets our imagination create what we think is there, or a lot of very disturbing ideas and violence are implied. One interesting theory I found in the comment section of the episode was that the gift had something related to Mike in it, since Mike was a gift. The color of the signature on the box is also bright pink, which is the same color as Mike and the pink too. The footage then cuts to a time when the spinning pyramid seems to have disappeared, and Paul is just playing around with the panning of the camera in the hallway.
Okay, so there's a bit of weirdness with the camera here.
Somehow he gets the idea of walking behind the pillars on one side, but doesn't find anything there. He decides to go behind the pillars on the other side, where he finds a little room with a gift inside of it. He interacts with the gift, the screen pans right into it, and an ominous square plays as we go into the darkness. Paul appears on the grass plane, walking to the back where he finds the same room he came out of in episode 1, this time with a cube and a symbol on it. Afterwards, Paul enters the room we are previously unable to enter, as we weren't capable of opening doors. This room has the same symbol as the cube above the door we just walked into. This is a recurring idea. Whenever we do something under the Newmaker plane that interacts with the bright world of even care, the place where we do it is usually marked with the sign in the background of the place it's interacting with. Walking through the hallway with the signs, Paul very swiftly goes through the signs that talk about picking pets. It might seem like he's just going through the same blocks of text, but there is a subtle difference in the first sign. The original sign read, "When you're choosing a pet, find somebody that you like. You don't have to love them right away." Whilst the new one reads, "When you're choosing a pet, find one that you like. You don't have to love them right away." This almost feels like the game trying to retroactively dehumanize the pets and make us forget about what we've just seen the Newmaker plane, and the weird ways in which pets and humans are treated similarly or differently to humans. The second sign is the same as it was before. The door to around this room is now also locked. Amber's trophy is the same as it was before. Whilst the before somewhat cheerful even care now mostly seems somewhat disturbing, as we now know what's behind it, it is reassuring to at least still know it's Paul playing, as he still makes sure to collect all of the low gems which seem to have magically reappeared. He then goes into Pen's room, where it's clear that the demo has in some way interacted with the game, as the piano is still gone, and the treadmill is still set to 0. The door to Candace's and Wavy's room is also locked. Paul decides to go one step further and set the treadmill to -1, which again breaks the game. We can only hear the clicking of Paul's controller. The footage once again jump cuts to Paul going to Care's room. I'm not exactly sure how he got there, but he's now able to catch Care. This is because, as shown in the sync with the treadmill and the flower in Care's room, these two seem to be connected, and by setting the treadmill to -1, the game of they love me not ends on they love me instead of they love me not. Kier still appears to be in quite a distressed state, but at least she's catchable. Weirdly enough, the same sound plays when Kier is caught as all the other pets, which feels at least a little odd, as they're pets and she's human. There's also a sign at the back of the symbol in Pen's room, just to confirm these two are in fact connected. Paul then goes to check Kier's description. The sign in the menu now reads, "You're in the other place too." Kier and Alem escape from the school's basement and wander the Newmaker plane for days. To catch her, you had to lie, but it may not be a lie forever. You're the Newmaker. You can turn Kier and Alem into Kier A and close the loop. Okay, well, first of all, why was she in the school basement? This is something we do get an answer to later, and I would argue we can already say almost sternly that it has something to do with Marvin, but we will get to that later. Apart from that, I think being the Newmaker could mean that we, or Paul, could help Kier become herself instead of forcing her to become Tiara, the name she had before adoption, which is viewed as something perfect, and he could instantly just let her be a Newmaker. Perhaps this is a far stretch, but that's how I interpret it. Paul then goes to the child library and tries to put Kier into the spinning hole in the wall, and he can. The sign of the menu now says, "The pets seem to like you. Thanks for playing Petscop." As most somewhat formal signs in the game, this one feels just ever so slightly inappropriate, as the pet liking you is a child that suffered abuse. He puts Kier and Alem into the spinning hole, and a sign pops up. You have decided to leave Kier and Alem. If you change your mind within 6 months, you can take Kier and Alem back. What month is it, anyway? What year is it? Paul doesn't say anything, but he somehow comes across as very regretful as he turns the wall around, finding nothing there. He goes back into Kier's room and picks her up again. Episode 10 of Petscop is another relatively short one, which I'm really grateful for because the next one, episode 11, is almost half an hour long. So at least I have a bit of time to prepare for it. The episode starts with Paul walking out even Kier, not saying anything, simply opening both of the doors to Amber's cage. He tries to go through the room with signs, but the door closes right in front of his face. He mumbles in the background, reminding us he's still there, before the game crashes. Reloading the game, we can see all of the 3 saves: Paul, Test, and Backup. Paul and Backup marked as panic saves, possibly corrupted. Now, I'm no gamer girl, but from my understanding, panic saves are basically automatic saves when the game crashes, trying to save the last position of the player they could. What's strange here, though, is that when Paul opens a save, he finds himself in the room with a gift. But once he goes to even Kier, both the doors to Amber's prison are still open. So, does the save stuff that's been done but can't recover Paul's original position? Maybe this is just my lack of understanding of video games, but it seems a bit odd to me. Like this was something you were supposed to do, even though it might seem like you're breaking the game. Maybe this is just me focusing on a bit of a plot hole, but as the footage cuts to Paul walking into the Newmaker plane, I can't help but wonder, how does he get there? Like, you haven't seen any road leading him there, he can't even get out through the original exit from even Kier. Even if you had a path marked how to get to the weird door in the midst of the Newmaker plane, it doesn't really make sense to me. Anyways.
Oh my god.
Under the Newmaker plane, Paul decides to walk into the Quidditch room, where he is this time able to reach the other side, finding a cube with a symbol of Amber's room, showing the two are, just like Pen and Care's rooms, linked. Even though Paul is on the other side of the mirror now, Tiara stays opposed to him, playing his mirror reflection. Last thing Paul does is check the "Do you remember being born" sign, which is now also flipped correctly. The footage then cuts to Paul asking Tool 3 questions. What month is it? To which a blank, red calendar appears in front of a tool. What year is it? Which simply makes the calendar stay there. He then asks where was the windmill, to which the answer is something that gets censored. It doesn't seem to evoke any kind of reaction in Paul, and the episode concludes on eerie silence. Also, a little thought I've had while watching this episode, the place of even care does now make me think of childhood trauma, as the way things you do in this seemingly bright and cheerful place can affect things happening later on in the darker, more sinister places of the Newmaker plane. Just some thoughts though. So, episode 11 is the longest one yet, almost half an hour long, but before we get into the contents of the episode, I'd like to take a look at the video description, which is honestly pretty fascinating. Everything we wish to say is below. The purpose of this YouTube channel is to preserve and display the recordings within the video game Petscop, while keeping some of their content private. They were first given to us as a Christmas gift many years ago. The game had an interesting journey, before and after that day. Paul created some additional recordings in 2017 as a way to show Petscop gameplay to his friend. He created this account in order to upload those additional recordings in video format. He later passed ownership of the channel to us, but continued to record himself at our strong suggestion. Though he had issues with the arrangement, these have finally been settled. Please enjoy the recordings in Petscop. We do. This message honestly feels really confusing to me, and it also feels like it's saying something we've all been expecting. It's clear that somebody, supposedly the mysterious we've been hearing from a bunch of times before, is talking here, and they want to store recordings of Paul's recordings of Petscop, but why do they want them publicly displayed? It's a bit confusing. And then there's also the continued to record himself at our strong suggestion. Though he had issues with the arrangement, these have finally been settled. Maybe this is just me, but it doesn't seem like Paul is all too happy with this arrangement. Okay, that's all the evading I can do, I think, of having to write like 20 minutes of audio. Let's go. The recording starts with Paul once again talking to someone, clearly cut out of context. Seemingly he's been talking for quite a while before the recording started.
There were signs along the way, that I ignored. Because it would have been a completely ridiculous idea to me.
This clip seems to mark a pretty important turning point for the series for me as well, as before I've only seen Paul as a confused observer trying to piece together this strange puzzle of a game. Now he seems to be actively withholding information from us, but still for whatever reason deciding to show us the footage of the gameplay. Or I suppose it's not really his decision to show us the gameplay anymore.
But when I found my room, it made, I was shocked at first, but it made sense. Especially considering where I found the game in the first place. That would be tied in some way to me through you.
There's also the question of who is he talking to. My guess would be he's talking to some kind of a family relative, considering that the game would be tied to him in some way through the person he's talking to. The game kind of seems like it'll be tying a family together, Marvin being the friend, and afterwards an abusive father of a reborn Care, his wife being his wife, Mike possibly also being some kind of a relative, and if the game ties together a family, then Paul could very well be put into the game and have it interact with him as family through a distant relative. Whoever he's talking to, it's certainly not the friend he was talking to before.
And I'm trying to think, when was the last time I saw any of you at all? It had to have been like 1999. I was a kid. I was a small kid. Tiny kid.
Paul is seemingly aimlessly walking through the grass, talking about some kind of a drawing, possibly a map he's made.
So if you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I have a drawing that I could scan and send to you. I just came home and drew this big drawing. and it's still you still need an explanation on because the drawing is not very clear, like scribbles really, but you need the visual to understand the explanation, right? So you need both.
He then starts running around the grass in some sort of a pattern, and a text box pops up.
I'm about 90% sure that this is gonna work. Wait, I think I did that wrong. Start again. Wait. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Whilst I tried to explain a lot of the events of the game, I am completely dumbfounded by the sequence, or how Paul knew what was going to happen at all.
I mean, I was 90% sure, but it's still a little shocking that it actually worked. That's very neat. Alright, so the way this works, I'm supposed to pass on this one.
He passes on the text box, and the footage cuts to him walking around a bit more, finding a tire on a stick in the field.
Haha. There it is. Okay.
He runs around it, and the text box pops up again. Paul is clearly excited by this discovery, as this is the first time where he doesn't even capitalize the first letter of the question. Where is house?
So I don't know. I mean, this is probably just asking me to go this way, right? Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
The tire starts spinning counterclockwise. Maybe this is a bit of a stretch, once again, but this could very well be related to the answer Paul got to asking the same question to Tool. Hello, this is Annie from the future. Quick update. I went back through the footage and realized that that was not the answer to the question, where's my house, but where's school? I think what I've said still makes sense, it just does not coincide with the Tool's answer. Treat in information as you wish. I just wanted to let you know. The footage once again cuts, this time to Paul walking around and finding a road.
That's not what I was expecting, actually. I guess a road makes sense.
I guess we'll never know the answer to this, but what was Paul expecting to see? The camera then pans, and Paul finds a text box near the road. This is a frozen house, captured 3 times, exactly as it was.
We just found the fucking house.
Paul proceeds to walk forwards, and finds the house. He tries interacting with the door. The screen goes dark for a bit, but then lights up again, and a text box appears. The key still works. It still works. Though you've unlocked the door, you still can't open it.
Can't open it. Another joke about how I can't open doors.
Paul seems to now be taking this strangely seriously. Now that we know he's tied to the game through some kind of a family member, or through a group of people who knew him, or at least knew him when he was little, there is a good chance him not being able to open doors is somewhat of a joke from his childhood. That's at least what it feels like to me. The footage cuts to where some synthy tones are playing in the background, while Paul ignores them and simply rants about he can't tell apart clockwise and counterclockwise.
Clockwise, the top is going to the right, and then, the bottom is going to the left. Right, and so when someone would say, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, or, you turn this thing to the right. And I mean, I still get confused about that. Because, I mean, well, I know it's always the top, but, I still have to think. I have to think.
This could once again be me stretching this very thin, but if this is related to anything we've seen in this episode so far, it would most likely be the direction of the tire. Meaning, it did mean something. Whatever it meant, the door is now open, and Paul walks right in.
Well, we have the door open now, so, I mean...
The house looks like a semi-regular house on the inside, except there are people appearing and disappearing all over the place, and there are clunky tones playing in the background.
Okay. It's interesting. Got people appearing and disappearing.
There are even some faint sounds of people talking. There's also a Christmas tree in the room, showing that this is one of the 3 times the house was captured, and it was on Christmas. A dialogue box pops up, seemingly at random, marked in blue, which reads, "Where have you been? Why are you gone for such a long time?" The color of the text would have me believe this is Marvin's wife talking. Paul comes across 2 calendars on the walls, one of them is filled with dates, some of them grey and white, others marked in green. The second calendar is all filled with grey and white spots.
Green every day. Oh, I don't know if you got that immediately. Yeah, so June to November.
Once again, Paul is talking to someone about something they both just figured out.
Yeah, on that topic, I don't remember meeting this girl at all. I don't remember knowing her at any point. And I remember you saying that we are, exactly the same age, right? I just don't remember even hearing about anyone going missing. Right? I don't have a single... I remember her going missing. I remember anything like that. I mean, I was a kid. But even then, could have been one of those periods when we weren't visiting very much, but it seems weird. I don't know if you can verify these dates, but 5th of June, 10th of November. Right, when she went missing and when she was found.
It seems like this means 3 things. Number 1, the scheme seems to be clearly intertwined with real life, a life of family it seems. Number 2, the green dates seem to represent when someone, presumably Kier, disappeared for a while. Because they're green, I would also assume that had to do with Marvin. It also means that Paul and Kier are the exact same age.
I do agree there's a resemblance.
We can see Paul walking around the house a bit more. Seems like the house is supposed to represent a real-life house, which whoever made the game decided to capture in the game. Paul is just trying to walk through a closed door when somebody asks, "Can I use the bathroom?" The text has no color, which is a bit confusing. Could be the person who created the game, or possibly someone not family related. A text box pops up once again in blue, which reads, "Of course," and the bathroom door opens. Paul walks into the bathroom, and a set of seemingly cheerfully, but in context of the game possibly mortifying jingles, plays as the screen suddenly zooms in on the television in the room. The bathroom itself is a pretty small room, resembling a bathroom, with a box with a symbol on top of it, and a little star leading up to the bath. The symbol is the same one in Randus' room. I'm not sure exactly these two are connected, but I know in this room there is a lot of dirt that clips out of the screen, roughly the same size as the bathroom, so they seem to be, at least in some way, connected. Oh yeah, also, this is probably the bathtub which he said refers to way back, talking about someone in a bathtub thinking about her. Paul walks up to the tub, and the footage cuts to black, then to the opening screen.
The hell? That was an experience. Huh.
A demo starts playing, seemingly unrelated to anything that's happened before, showing us footage of the tunnel cars usually come out of. The camera slowly pans, going into the tunnel, and onto the road. A clock appears, slowly ticking. There is a jump cut in the midst of the clock movement, which I am somewhat confused by, as it seemingly keeps moving on the same time when the cut ends. The clock disappears only once we hit a wall of strange red textures. The demo sign then goes down as we appear in front of a chair with Marvin standing next to it. We are also introduced to a new way of communication, as both Paul and Marvin can now say words through some kind of a PS controller code. Maybe it's actually really basic stuff, but since I've never played on a PS, it seems really complicated. They walk into the school building, which they find right behind them, and we are met with what looks like a strange attempt at a first-person view. I'm kind of wondering if this is once again a reminder that the game is unfinished, or if it's supposed to maybe show us what being a disabled person in school feels like. With themes of child abuse and trauma that are still present in the series, even if most of the episodes lately have been more cryptic and less invested in those themes, it wouldn't be entirely surprising to me. Everything is clipping around, there's haunting music playing everywhere, the collectibles seem weirdly huge and difficult to collect, yet Paul, or whoever's playing in this demo sequence, tries their best. Which would have me believe that as Paul, but this is a demo sequence. There's also a green tool on the right, which starts moving around and everything else turns dark. This happens a few times. A set of lockers is found with a lock on one of them, which they try to open, but can't. The tool also seems to be moving based on how the lock turns. After this confusing display, the footage finally cuts back to Paul, once again walking to the bathroom.
What? The hell? That was an experience.
The same jingle plays, but this time the camera is panning away from the TV. Strangely enough, Paul seems to be doing the exact same things as before, even saying the exact same stuff. The only difference is there isn't a cube or stairs leading up to the bathtub anymore. There's actually a sync of this footage and the footage before. Paul is quite literally saying the exact same stuff at the exact same time.
What? The hell? That was an experience.
Exiting the bathroom, the only thing left in the house now is a bucket in the middle of the room.
Got a bucket here.
There is also a note on the wall, which reads, "My husband may come here after 6 p.m. Please stay overnight if you can. Thank you so much." Checking the calendars again, they're marked the exact same way, except the dates end in June now, so this is an earlier capture.
I don't know if I can find out the in-game time, and what the hell is this?
One of the doors in the house is now open, so Paul walks right into it. We can see Care A, with a glowing block around her, stopping Paul from getting to her sitting up on the bed, with a high-pitched note occasionally interrupting the silence. Once Paul finds out he can't seem to be able to catch Care A, he walks out of the house, and behind it.
On this bed? I'm supposed to get up on the bed. Oh, we're free now, that's good. I'm interested in this window.
He proceeds to go back into the room with Care, walking around through the door in the back, when the door closes on him.
I don't know, there's something I missed in here. I don't think so. It's a fun thing. Fun thing that just happened. I didn't do that. I can't close doors. I can't open doors either, so I...
Never disappoints. I really don't know why, but I love the opening doors gag so much. Paul seems to lay back a bit, not sure what to do, when Marvin suddenly bursts through the window of the house, taking Care, and leaving.
What? Uh-oh.
A sign appears, which reads, "Care left the room." Suddenly, everything disappears.
Oh.
The door opens, and everything is back where it was. Paul walks out of the room, when Marvin walks out of the bathroom, and also disappears.
Still can't, Wait, so... oh, shit. What? Shit. Where did he just come from? Bathroom?
Worth noting, on the clock it is now showing that it is past 6, further adding on to the idea that the game was meant for Marvin, and that he is the owner of the house and father of Care. Paul leaves the room, and now finds a ladder he can climb up to the window with.
Yeah, now there's a cute little ladder there.
He now takes the role of Marvin as he breaks in through the window, taking Carrie with him. Looking for Kira's description, the sign on the game menu now reads, "I'll come out in a minute. Keep playing." The description reads, "The emergency began. You're all looking for Care A. I told you all, we could never find Care A. When Carrie goes missing, she goes missing forever. My brother didn't want us to find him because he knew we were all looking for Michael A. I'm back. This is my present for you. I started in 1996 for Marvin. If you think they're worth any effort, see if you can save Care B or KNLM. Care B's in the school, of course. Fuck you all, and fuck me as well. Merry Christmas. Check your bathroom now." Going through his description, I think what it means is that Care A is a completely normal Care. Her going missing forever most likely means that she has been traumatized beyond recovery, beyond rebirthing. She can only be found in this house, since that's where she has been frozen. Going further, I'm pretty sure Michael is Mike Hammond, who died. We know he's Rainer's brother now. Rainer himself seems rather irritated his brother died, and the game now seems to be some form of revenge from him. This also confirms what you already kind of knew, that the game was made for Marvin, at least originally. It also seems that Rainer is the creator of the game, and so whenever we have an unmarked text box popping up, we can assume it's him talking. Paul's only comment about it is talking about how he met Rainer before.
I saw him at a birthday party once. All the older kids were down in the basement playing video games. Hide from everyone. He was down there too. He was older than the rest of them now.
Paul exits the room, and the same sign flashes. Kara has left the room. There seems to be some sort of a parallel between Marvin and Paul. He then decides to check the bathroom, as Rainer said, but nothing seems to be there. If he found something later on, I guess we'll never know, as the footage cuts to school, this time to Paul standing in a room with Marvin in front of a chalkboard. Play music for baby. She will become melody. Marvin then proceeds to give Paul the Needles piano, an instrument which can play tones, the same type of tones as we've heard in Care A's room. He then proceeds to start playing something. I'm not sure what exactly, but Marvin seems to like it for a while, before Paul messes something up. This is just what I personally get out of it, but I think Marvin talking about Tiara making bad music shows how someone, specifically children who are often seen as smart, can struggle with certain things, but are expected to just understand them. Yeah, this is probably just me projecting my own struggles on the game, but at this point, I don't really care, to be honest. The way it's portrayed here as a child falling and getting lost just kinda hits me for whatever reason. The episode ends there. Episode 12 is about 7 minutes long and is the final episode we're going to be talking about today. Whilst quite short, it is one of the very fascinating episodes of the series as it brings a whole new element into the game. The entire episode is a demo recording of someone walking around the Quitter's room, except this time there is no Tiara on the other side. The footage suddenly cuts to them walking into the room again, except there is a, for lack of better words, Cheeto head on the other side. I guess it's not too surprising that this part of the footage is perfectly synced with Paul walking down the other side of the Quitter's room in episode 10, so you can assume that the recording is from the point of view of Tiara, the person on the other side of the mirror. I've seen a theory in the progress document that everyone in the game sees themselves as the default character, but buyers are perceived as a different character. This isn't the new element I was talking about before, but it is also interesting that now, when we see a demo recording, we also need to think about whose point of view it's showing. It's also interesting the way in which the footage cuts here. It would seem as a jump cut, but the jump cuts in the game are usually done through a bit of blackness appearing before the next piece of footage is introduced, probably by design, so this is most likely footage of what Tiara has been doing while Paul was gone, but once he came in, she had to copy his movements. Apart from the events in the Quitter's room, the episode is mostly just whoever's playing here, walking around, and a bunch of text boxes appearing, seemingly at random, of somebody, probably Rainer, talking to them. I would like to just read through all these text boxes now and say what I think they mean afterwards. So let's do that now. Hi, Belle. You're free. I left these messages for you to look at in case you're ever rescued. So while you walk around looking for something to do, I'll come up periodically. When the messages run out, I'll be out of your hair forever and ever. Standing in front of Mike's grave, another message appears. You've apparently been running Petscop non-stop for 553,758,221 seconds, or 153,822 hours. That looks dubious to me. What do you think? In case you don't want to have to do the math for yourself, 153,822 hours is more than 17 years. Another two signs appear in front of the good grief and alas sign. Are you still sitting on a chair? Can you still look around the room? Is there still a room? This is the child library. You're not family, so I didn't add your traits to the face system. That means I didn't add your eyes, or your eyebrows, or your nose. Belle runs around a bit on the Newmaker plane, finding Marvin simply standing there, ignoring her. He leads her on a bit, but then she simply walks away. A sign also pops up, reading, "Don't get lost." The footage then cuts to her walking around the middle of the Newmaker plane. "Happy birthday, Belle. The sign gets cut off here. I'm calling you Belle because that's who you are. You might be confused as to what happened. I was overeager before and started calling you Tiara prematurely. I created a space in the menu for you, still unused now. Then I put you inside the machine and played the second movement of Stravinsky's septet on the needles. I played it wrong, but that'd have been okay. If you hadn't given up halfway, you would be Tiara. This is not what happened, and now I'm gone." The recording ends by going into the menu, which now reads, "Demo recording." Also, the quit game button isn't there. Can't tell if this is because it just doesn't show up in demo recordings, or if the game can't be quit anymore. So, first things first, Belle here is clearly a new character of the game, and her name is marked in the same color as Tiara. So is Belle Tiara? There clearly seems to be some dispute going on about that. Secondly, the game seems to be consuming players in a way. This is what I was talking about when talking about a new element being shown here. How else could somebody sit in a room for 17 years? It's also strange how she still seems to be in-game, in spite of the fact that she can't have any contact with it anymore. This is something we'll expand on later. The game seems to be trapping players within it in a way. The sign which read, "Are you still sitting on a chair?" also adds that idea. Reminds me of that sign of the game when you which read, "You're in the other place too." Thirdly, "You're not family, so I deny your traits to the face system." So we now definitely know that the game is based on a family of some kind. It also seems that Belle was supposed to be an adoptive child or something along those lines, but she failed a rebirthing ritual and is now trapped in the game as a way of revenge by someone. Once again, this is most likely Rainer, possibly Marvin. It seems that Rainer is the creator of the game, but locking someone into the game for the rest of their life seems like a very Marvin thing to do. Again, this is a bit of a reach into the future. However, I will expand more in part 2 on why I believe Marvin is the one behind Tier's trapping. And that's about it for episode 12 of Petscop. Hope it left you with a lot of questions. I can answer once I get around to making another video about it. I honestly feel kind of bad for doing this, but like, I would feel much worse trying to do twice the work I'm already doing on this video. So, yeah, part 2 coming hopefully later on this year. So, there goes part 1 of the Petscop examination. I was originally thinking I could use the outro section of this video to talk about the conclusion and summarize what I know about the series so far, but I think I'd rather leave that for part 2, as I think it might be a bit misleading, since I think I may very well contradict some of the stuff I've said here with what comes across me might well work on part 2, and I also think it'll be more satisfying to have the conclusion at the actual ending. With that said, I feel the need to say that I'm not planning on pyrocynicaling anyone. Part 2 will be made. It's debatable when. It already took me like 4 months to get this done, and a lot of it was done over the holidays, but it will be done. I really hope later on this year, but I have given up on promising anything at this point because I can't plan for shit. But what I'd like to do here instead is talk for a bit about Petscop less as just a puzzle to figure out, and more as an art piece. Because at the end of the day, I think whilst talking about the series is a lot of fun, I think it's also worth noting that Domenico has made an entire fictional game to make an online series, which he has been working on for over 2 years. That on its own feels like a great accomplishment to me, but it also helps that the series is absolutely amazing. Somehow it strikes the perfect balance between being incredibly complicated and cryptic, yet making you feel like you are finding out new things all the time, and almost inviting you to explore it and form your own thoughts on it. The art style of the game is also great. I think it's easy to just take this for granted, but it doesn't take a small amount of skill to create a game which feels this cohesive, with an art style where, honestly, almost every frame feels cursed to some degree. So yes, I don't have an amazing conclusion for this video yet. I doubt I'll even have one at the end of part 2, but that's because I believe that the great thing about Petscop is that it lets everyone come to their own conclusions. If my talking points over the course of this video seemed a little bit confused, it could very well be because there are many possible stories I have thought of revolving around this game, and I'm sure there are even more I haven't even thought of, which is why I would implore you to go watch the series yourself. A lot of people have said this, and I very much agree that it's kind of sad how people theorizing about the series get so much more attention than the series itself. Now I understand why that is. It is a lot easier to have someone go through and spend hours upon hours thinking about it and then simply tell you what conclusions they came to, but I think that if this is something that interests you, actually going through the series and going through the motions of figuring it out for yourself is the best thing you can do, really. So, you know, don't take anything I've said in this video as a definite interpretation, because it isn't. And with that said, I suppose that is the end of this video. Now, considering we live in an age where telling people to subscribe is something you can do practically every 30 seconds, I think going without doing so for about 2 hours is quite an accomplishment. So allow me to ruin that accomplishment now by saying that I'm really proud of this video. I think it's one of the best ones I've made. I've spent a lot of time on it, a lot of thought went into it, and it'll mean a lot to me if you enjoyed it, of course, you'll let me know. Leave a like, subscribe, comment. There's also something I forgot to say before. If you have your own thoughts on Petscop or think I got something wrong in this video, please don't hesitate to let me know. I'd be very much interested in reading other people's thoughts on the series. Also, sharing would obviously mean a lot to me. It's how you get new people to the channel, so If you think you have a friend who really needs to hear a 2-hour talk about a creepy online series where the main character plays a walking Cheeto, feel free to send this video. Or, if you don't have friends, you can always retweet it on Twitter. That'd also be great. I am alienating people with friends from my fanbase. Great. Goodbye everyone. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.